Yo, welcome to the channel. In this video today, I'm bringing back an oldie due to the changes to a set that was made in the recent patch of STONETHORN. I thought I'd revisit an old setup or an old build and kind of update it. So this is a Ice Mage Warden. Now it is not the hardest hitting Warden, but if you like to roleplay or if you just want to use ice, it's not bad. It's not a bad setup at all. So let's go ahead and dive into it. Max Magicka is 35.6k. Health is 16.6. You know, when it comes to health, you do want to be that 16.5 to 17.5 on the average, especially if you're DPS. Magic recovery is 1.3. Spell damage is 2.3. Weapon crit, spell crit, not weapon crit, my bad, it's 49.8. And points, I have 53 points into Magicka, 11 into health. I'm a Briton, so based on your race, you may need to make some changes. Boon I'm running is the Shadow to increase our crit damage, and then I'm using basic Witch Mother's Food, which runs out here shortly. So let's go ahead and pop another. Well, I guess seeing how I gotta pop it, I can show you basic buy stat food. Max Magic is 38.3, maximum health is 19.5, magic recovery is 925. So that's the difference between buy stat food and Witch Mother's, which I'm running low on. I'm running low on a lot of things. So there you go. There's the different stats if you wanted to see them. I figured, hey, why not while I was doing it. So, champion points. We have 28 into Warlord, 29 into Sprinter, 9 into Bashing Focus, 64 Arcanist, 64 Tenacity, 31 Shadow Ward, 44 Tumbling. Now, Green Tree, Tenacity, Arcanist are your main two. Arcanist being the first one, followed by Tenacity, because this is going to help you maintain resources. Something I don't really mention in my videos, but I do want to mention Master Gathering. This is going to reduce your gathering time. So if you want to farm, this is really nice to have to begin with. So this, makes it really quick. So instead of sitting there for 2 seconds, you sit there for a second. You just grab it and go. Now, after that, you have options. You can either work on Break Free or reduce the cost of Sprint if you want to, or even Bash Your Focus. I would go with one of these two if you focus on anything over here, or you can focus on block reduction, roll dodge reduction, and sneak if you sneak around a lot. Any of these three. As long as you get 75 points here for the treasure hunting passive, because this is going to increase the quality of items you find in treasure chests. That's overland sets, dungeon chests, trial set chests, not sets but chests, um, lock boxes, thieves guild boxes, just about anything. If it's a chest, if it counts as a chest, then you will find it. You have a chance of getting better items with this. So this is really nice to have. So you can really go either way. But Arcanist Tenacity is your main focus at first, and then followed by either of these, or you can just fill up your tree here until you get Treasure Hunter. Yeah. So, no. Red tree. We have 34 in Ironclad, 30 into Spell Shield, 30 into Light Armor Focus, 64 Hardy, 64 Elemental Defender, 37 Quick Recovery, 11 Bastion. Now, we don't always use a shield, but when we do need one, it is nice to have that little extra a little extra effectiveness to a shield. So if you find yourself not needing a shield, you could always take them out to increase your healing received, or if you just want to beef up your character a little more, you can. Now, in the red tree, Hardy and Elemental Defender are going to be your main two focuses, followed by Ironclad. Ironclad is the third one, hands down. Once you get it to about 26, 28, one of those two, whichever one is the closest to the whole number going over, um, you can then either focus on making your character a little more tanky with Spell Shield and Light Armor focus, or focus on your healing received and your shield. But Hardy, Elemental Defender, Ironclad are your main three here. Now, when it comes to the blue tree, we have nothing into Blessed here. We don't need it. We don't really do healing. We don't have our self heal, but even if we do, we don't really need anything from Blessed if we are required to use one. We have Elfborn. 61 into Elfborn, 64 into Elemental Expert, 20 into Spell Erosion, 21 Staff Expert, 56 Master at Arms, and 48 Thermometer. Now, Elfborn Elemental Expert are your main two, followed by Thermometer, followed by Master at Arms, and then Staff Expert and Spell Erosion. So, because a lot of the abilities on a mage is more dot based, or at least at this Ice Wizard, it's more dot based. So, Thermometer kind of would take priority over Master at Arms for me, even though our main spammable Master at Arms affects, but most of the other abilities Thermometer is going to affect. So now sets. Icy Conjure. If you're running an ice setup anyway, you need to run this setup. Honestly, you can run this setup even without being an ice setup. This is a nice set. We're running a precise frost staff with a frost damage enchant on it. Now what this does, it gives us max magicka, spell damage, spell pin, and then applying a minor debuff to your enemy summons a non-reflectable ice ray that will charge your enemy, dealing 32k frost damage over 10 seconds. This effect can occur every 10 seconds. So as long as you can apply a debuff, this will spawn out every 10 seconds, and it deals 32k damage. Now it won't always be 32 if you're by yourself, but for the most part, if you're with the group, the resistances on the boss should be pretty shredded. You know, from pierce armor, tank's taunt, whatever. Whatever debuffs are going on, LE Drain. Well, I think LE Drain and Pierce Armor are the same debuff. So, you should hit close to that 32k. Yeah. Now, if you don't have a tank, it's probably going to be closer to 27, 28, but that is still a huge frost dot. So, we're running an ice staff, and then we're running it on our jewelry, all arcane, all spell damage. So, this comes from Frostvault. It can be relatively a pain to get, especially on vet, but even blue jewelry on normal there's not a huge difference between the two. I mean, it's a couple thousand, but I mean, it's still a big dot even with blue jewelry. So, now a monster set. Keeping to the ice theme, this is the only monster set that gives us ice damage. And it's really not that much damage, but just sticking with it. We have this one piece gives us spell crit, and then the two piece, when you deal critical damage, you have a 20% chance to gain a damage shield that absorbs 5k damage for 6 seconds. While the damage shield holds, you deal 738 frost damage to all enemies within 5 meters of you every 1 second. This effect can occur once every 6 seconds. So it's a nice little shield. It deals okay damage. It is not the greatest. Now, monster set wise, you could Valken Scoria, Grofdar, Maw of the Infernal, Nearinth all outperform this tenfold. There's no comparison. The damage that it does is frost damage. So if you want to keep with the frost theme, run this. But if you want to do more damage and not worry about the monster set, like just try to add in some extra damage, Valken Scoria, we run a lot of dots, works great with this setup. But if you want to keep with the ice theme, then go with Ice Heart. We're running a heavy helmet divines with max magicka and a medium shoulders. You do want this divines. I just have one in pin with max magicka. So this comes from Dire Frost Keep. That's where you would get Ice Heart. Now, the second 5-piece set that we're running got, I'm not necessarily going to say a buff, but kind of a buff. That's Winterborn. This comes from Maelstrom. You can farm the body pieces on normal. Really easy to get through, plus it will allow you to get your Maelstrom Inferno ice staff that we run on the back bar. I guess I should go over this. We'll run an infused one with a weapon damage enchant. Basically, as long as your light and heavy attacks deal an additional 1.3k damage to enemies in your wall of elements. This is what allows the build to hit over 25k. Without this, the build is going to pull 22. Average between 22 and 24. With this Maelstrom, it does take it up to 26, 27 on the average. Okay, on a 3 mil. So, without this, the build is going to be rough with the damage. But, it is what it is. Now, Winterborn, this patch. We're running it all on the body. All divines. All with max magicka. Well, I think I have Icy Conjure gloves. We have one infused. You do kind of want divines, but I have an infused one. Infused on the big pieces work well. It gives us more max magicka. Like, you don't want it infused on the gloves. You would rather have infused like on the legs, chest, or head. And if you're going to have an infused piece. But divines is preferably better, but this is just what I have. So, now what Winterborn does, it gives us max magicka. magic recovery, spell damage, and when you deal frost damage, you summon an ice pillar that deals 11k frost damage to all enemies in a 3-meter radius. The ice pillar persists for 2 seconds, reduces the movement speed of all enemies within a radius by 50%. This effect can occur once every 6 seconds. Now, there is another set that will just increase your frost damage by 400 if it's golded out. I think if it's not golded out, it's 386. And that's called Yizumor. It comes from Eastmarch. But 11k frost tick, it's really nice. Before STONETHORN, this had an 8% chance to proc when you deal frost damage. Now, it's just instantly when you deal frost damage, every 6 seconds, it will go off because we're dealing nothing but frost damage. So as long as you have your AoEs down on the ground, you're going to deal frost damage, and it's going to proc this. And just to show you what it looks like, well, there's the Ice Wraith, as you saw, and then there was Winterborn as well. And then, of course, it procced Ice Heart. So, while that's still going, there it is. There's the Ice Wraith, and that's all it takes. A light attack will proc both sets. So, if you don't light attack beforehand, Growing Swarms will proc Ice Wraith, but it will not proc Winterborn. But a light attack will proc Winterborn. That's how easy these sets proc. And as you can see, the sets, just with a couple of light attacks by themselves, well, I guess Swarm is on it, already dropped it by 5%. So, 6%. So, you can do quite a bit of damage with it. It's just not optimal. A Fire Staff will always outperform these. And there are some cases where I do run a Winterborn Inferno Staff, and then Icy Conjurer on the body. If I want to still do frost damage, I tried that out. With the Inferno Staff, with this setup, switching to Fire Staffs, I still left the Maelstrom Ice Staff on the back bar. I just switched to an Inferno Staff for Winterborn. Your DPS will go up over 25k. I think it was like 28, 29 on the regular. But just once I did break 30 with it, but that was, it's rare. It only happened once or twice out of like maybe 10. So it's not something to count on. This set isn't, you're not going to hit hard, but it is fun if you just want to roleplay. And honestly, Icy Conjure is a really good set to run, regardless, even if you're not running an Icy build. You can replace Winterborn with something like Scathing Mage. You can replace Iceheart with Valken Scoria, Maw the Infernal, and do solid. Of course, throw a Maelstrom Inferno Staff on the back bar. Run, or just run Icy Conjure on the body with a Inferno Scathing Mage, Inferno Staff, or whatever. Or Burning Spellweave. And change out a few abilities. But for the most part, if you just want to roleplay with the ice setup, this is the way to go about it. So, now skills. Our main spell is going to be Force Pulse. Focus all the element energies with your staff and blast the enemy for 2.7k flame damage and 2.9k frost damage and 2.7k shock damage. Up to 2 nearby enemies will take 10k magic damage if they were already afflicted with burning shield or concussed status effect. So this is just a nice little way to help us with some damage, because our spammable is going to do frost damage. It's about the only way to really get that frost damage through. There is Elemental Weapon Expert. Let me see if I got it here. It's in the Sigic Order line. Ellie Weapon is pretty nice too. It does do magic damage, but it procs off the light attack from your Ice Staff. So you can go with that one. And then Frost Reach. I tried out the other one. I just think this one's a little bit better. You devastate an enemy with an enhanced charge from your staff, dealing 4.8k frost damage and an additional 9.5k frost damage over 10 seconds. As this levels up, it may get higher. I'm not 100% sure. I've always used the other morph up until recently. I wanted to try the more damage and the less range, so this is what I've switched to. And I'm having fun with it right now, just running around killing world bosses and stuff like that. Nothing too major, and doing dailies. Fetcher Infection. Unleash a swarm of Fetcher Flies to relentless attack an enemy, dealing 14.7k magic damage over 10 seconds. Every second cast ability deals 50% increased damage. The Fletcher Flies rip through the enemy's flesh, afflict them with minor vulnerability for the duration, increase their damage taken by 8%. Yes, this is not ice damage, but this is a strong ability. This will proc Icy Conjurer regardless. And on top of that, that just it does a lot of damage over 10 seconds. Just about everything right now is 10 seconds. It lasts for 10 seconds. So it's really easy just to keep the rotation going with this. Plus, minor vulnerability is just too good not to run. And honestly, there's just not a whole lot of abilities to use for ice. There's just really not. Even in the main skill line, if you wanted to, you could use something like Arctic Wind, but it's more of a heal. The frost damage is okay, but it's not something that I would count on. Like, you can go with like Arctic Blast is going to deal 1.8k frost damage every 1 second nearby enemies. Enemies hit this effect at 3 times or stunned for 4 seconds. The healing from this ability scales with your max health. So you can run Arctic Blast or Polar Wind if you want a bigger heal, but it's up to you on which one you want to run. But I would not get rid of any of these 3 abilities. These are really good on your front bar. These work out tremendously well. Now, Birds of Prey, we got to select for Minor Berserk. Increase your damage done by 8%. That's kind of there. Plus, it's the passive and the Animal Companion. I'm up top. Animal Companion. So while it's here, we're going to get an increase, that 2% extra increased damage for having Animal Companion ability slotted. We have it here. We have 2. We have Petrification and Birds of Prey. So they're both here. So that's why we get that extra 4% damage. And then we have Inner Light. While slot your max magic is increased by 5%, and you gain major props to increase your spell critical rating by 2.1. That's all it is to it. And then we have Northern Storm here. Twist a violent storm around you, dealing 4.7k frost damage every 1 second for 8 seconds to enemies around you, and reducing their movement speed by 40%, and increasing your max magicka by 15% for 30 seconds. You and nearby allies gain major protection, reducing your damage taken by 30%. This comes in handy quite a bit. Now, you can obviously go with the other morph if you wanted to. I think it's Permafrost, but I like Northern Storm. I like that extra group utility from the major protection. That's just me. Go with whichever one you want to prefer. I mean, the damage is pretty identical. So, on our back part, of course, we have Blockheaded Frost. This is what gives our Maelstrom weapon its effect. Slam your staff down to create an ice barrier in front of you, dealing 1.2k frost damage to enemies in the target area every 1 second and reduce their movement speed by 40%. Chilled enemies become frozen or immobilized for 4 seconds. Winter's Revenge. Conjure ice shards at the target location to skewer enemies in the area, dealing 2.3k frost damage every 1 second for 12 seconds. Enemies hit are overcome with bitter cold, reducing their movement speed by 30% for 3 seconds. This ability has a higher chance to apply the chill status effect. So, and then we have Blue Betty here. Call the Betty Nest to your side, which restores 4.9k Magicka to you over 25 seconds and grants you major brutality and sorcery, increasing your weapon and spell damage by 20%. Every 5 seconds, the net removes 1 negative effect from you. Now, Child Acceleration. Bend time and space around you to gain Major Expedition for 12 seconds and Minor Force for 36 seconds. Increase your movement speed by 30% and critical damage by 10%. This is from the Psijic line. It's very easy to get. I think you get it around level 4 or 5. If you do not have this, Barb Trap from Fire's Guild works good as well. You can go with that. Barb Trap, I think, unlocks in the Fire's Guild 8 or 9. Honestly, it would probably be quicker and easier to get Channel Acceleration from the Psijic skill line. But you could go with either one. It's all about just getting that Minor Force. I'll go with Channel Acceleration because it's just, I like it. That's just my personal opinion, my personal preference. Go with whichever one you prefer. Of course, we double bar Inner Light here. If you need a shield for whatever reason, you take off Inner Light and you put on Harness Magicka or Annulment from the light armor skill line. Now, in back bar, we have Icy Rage. This is a Destro. Create a Catalytic Storm at the target location that builds after 2 seconds and lay waste to all enemies in the area, dealing 8.6k frost damage every 1 second for 7 seconds. Enemies hit are immobilized for 3 seconds. You can use either ultimate you want. The Icy Rage one does more damage, but this one gives you more max magicka, and it gives you major protection. So, just be cautious which one you use. You know, if it's something where you know there's going to be a lot of damage coming at you, then you might want to use Northern Storm. Or if it's something you just need that burn for, then go with Icy Rage. So, you know, pick and choose when you use it. Now, something I want to touch on. Distraction Staff. Do not have, if you are running an ice staff, do not have any points into Trifocus. This will get you quicker kicked from dungeons quick. Because what this is while you have a staff equipped, a fully charged heavy attack will taunt the boss. Yes, it gives you a damage shield, but you're going to pull the boss away from the tank. So you do not want to set back with Trifocus and heavy attack, because the boss is going to run at you and then you're just going to run around. Or you're going to stand there and get killed depending on what you're doing. And you don't want that. They don't want that. The healer don't want that. Nobody wants that. So if you're going to run in the ice setup with the ice staff and stuff, please do not have Trifocus. Don't think, oh, well, I won't throw a heavy attack out. I'm not going to do that. You will. Eventually, you'll find out that you need the resources for whatever reason. Maybe you lagged up a little bit and burnt through it. You don't have your pod up. So you're just going to throw out a heavy attack for that resources. But you're going to taunt. So just keep that in mind and bear with it. So let's see, trash bots. Let's see here. Let's see what we look like fully buffed. With everything going, we're at 1.5k magic recovery, 3.3k spell damage, of course, 49.8% crit. So if you use Northern Storm with your Magicka, you'll see it shoots up to 39.7. As you can see, it does a good chunk of damage as well. So now for the rotation, this is a very easy rotation. You're going to buff up Channel Acceleration, Blue Betty Niche, Shards, Wall, Fletcher, Clinch, and just Force Balls. You're going to be able to fire off about 3 or 4. Wall, Shards, Fletcher, Clinch, and you're just going to be able to fire it off. That's it. The rotation isn't that complicated. It's not that hard. Honestly, the damage is there. You're not going to, like I said, this is not a hard-hitting class, but it is fun if you want to roleplay. With the changes to Winterborn, where they now took away the 8% proc chance, that it's nice. At 11k every 6 seconds, it's nice for frost damage. Because this, for some reason, why previously, before they changed the proc chance, really seemed like it only wanted to go off like maybe every 4 rotations. It was not worth using at all. Icy Conjurer is just destructive in general. Let's see, it says 32 there. With that here, oh, yeah, so 32. So, yeah, no changes to it. So, yeah, it's 32k dot. It's really nice. Ice Heart, like I said, isn't the best, but it's the only set that gives us frost damage. It's not much. This is the setup that I would use. By all means, if you need a heal at the time, go with Arctic Wind. Morph it into whichever one you want. I would go, personally, Arctic Blast for the stun and stuff. That's just me. But you can pick whichever one. If you want more heal, go for it. If not, go Arctic Blast. Outside of that, this is pretty much it. If you want a more AoE spammable with ice damage and pulse, take it to Pulsar or whatever. I mean, it would just be a big ice ring around you. But when it comes to actually DPSing, this is just about it. So it's a fun, nice little role-playing build, but it's not going to be a top-tier big DPS setup. You're going to pull somewhere between 24 and 27k as you get used to it. After you transmute the jewelry, if you actually like Icy Conjurer, I do. If you choose to transmute it to Bloodthirsty, 2 Bloodthirsty, 1 Infused, 3 Bloodthirsty, whichever one you take, you will probably then be able to break 30k. Like, I don't see why you wouldn't be able to pull 31, 32k then. But outside of that, you're probably not going to. You're going to hit 26 to 28. So, but this is just for fun. It's just a nice little fun little build. And by all means, remember, no Trifocus passive. So let me know if y'all have fun with builds like this, role-playing type builds. Let me know what you use. So thank you for checking out the video. Until next time, take care.